When I saw the 2 pink lines on the test, I sat on the edge of the tub and stared at them for what felt like an hour. I wasn't expecting it. We hadn't planned this. But somehow, deep down, I wasn't surprised. It felt right. I wasn't scared, not in the way people say they are. It was more like I was carrying a secret that could fix us. We had been distant lately. My husband, James, was coming home later than usual. He always blamed work or traffic, but I could tell he was somewhere else even when he was right beside me. We hadn't fought. But that was the problem, we hadn't talked either. So I thought maybe, just maybe, this news would change everything. Bring him back. Make him smile like he used to when he saw me across the kitchen. I even imagined the way he'd hug me, lift me off the ground, tell me he was ready. I waited 2 days before telling him. It was a Wednesday night. I cooked his favorite, spaghetti with homemade sauce, garlic bread, that bottle of red he liked. I wore the sweater he once said made my eyes stand out. I put the pregnancy test in a little box and wrapped it with a ribbon. I even added a note, ready for the next chapter. He walked in distracted. Didn't even kiss me. Tossed his keys on the table and mumbled something about a client call running long. I told him dinner was ready. He nodded, sat down, scrolled his phone for a few seconds, and then finally looked up. I handed him the box. "What's this?" he asked, blinking at it. "Just, open it." He untied the ribbon, opened the lid, and stared at the test inside. At first, I saw something flicker in his eyes, surprise, maybe even joy. But then, his whole face shifted. He closed the box. Slowly. Like he wasn't sure what to say. "You're pregnant?" "Yes," I said, already starting to smile. "I found out a few days ago." There was a pause. An awful one. He didn't say anything. I waited. "You're sure?" I froze. "Yes. I took 3 tests." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I just didn't think this would happen now." "I know," I said gently. "But it did. And I thought you'd be happy," he cut in, his voice hollow. "I don't know what I am." I stood there, blinking. "You don't know?" James got up, walked to the window, arms crossed. He stared outside like he could escape through the glass. "I can't talk about this right now," he muttered. "Then when?" He didn't answer. I felt my throat tighten, the tears already climbing. "James, I need you to say something." Still nothing. So I left the box on the table and walked upstairs. I sat in the bathroom with the door locked, holding my stomach. For the first time since seeing those 2 pink lines, I felt alone. That night, he slept in the guest room. No explanation. No check-in. No, "We'll talk tomorrow." Just a closed door between us. I stared at the ceiling for hours, asking myself what had gone so wrong. When did we stop being us? The next morning, he left early for work. Didn't even wake me. Just a note on the counter, "We'll talk soon." 3 words that meant absolutely nothing. I spent the entire day wondering if I should call my sister. But I didn't. I didn't want to say the words out loud. I told my husband I'm pregnant and he walked away emotionally. It wasn't until that evening, when I was cleaning up the dishes from the night before, that I noticed his phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. He'd forgotten it. It was vibrating with a name I didn't recognize, Allie. Over and over again. And that was when the next chapter began, but not the one I had imagined. I stood in the kitchen staring at his phone, vibrating like it had a pulse of its own. The name, Allie, lit up again, the letters glowing against the countertop like they were mocking me. I shouldn't have picked it up. I know that. But in that moment, instinct overruled dignity. I swiped it open, no password. Of course not. James was always one step ahead of suspicion. Or maybe he just thought I'd never look. The first message was from that morning. Did you tell her yet? The one before that. I'm tired of hiding, James. We deserve better. And then the photo. A mirror selfie of a woman, tall, blonde, in a silk robe. Her hand rested on her stomach. Her very visibly pregnant stomach. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a crack I swear I felt in my ribs. My knees buckled, and I sat right there on the cold kitchen tiles, holding my own stomach like I had to protect it from everything I had just seen. He had another woman. And she was pregnant. Just like me. I don't remember how long I sat there. I didn't cry. Not yet. I didn't scream. I just floated. My brain couldn't catch up with what my eyes had absorbed. When I finally stood up, my legs shook. I picked up the phone again, took screenshots of the messages and photo, and sent them to my own email. I wasn't thinking clearly, but some part of me knew I'd need proof. Not just for me, for the child growing inside me. At 7:43 p.m., James walked through the door like nothing had happened. He tossed his keys on the counter, kicked off his shoes, and was halfway through asking, "What's for dinner?" when he saw my face. He stopped cold. "What's wrong?" I held up his phone. "You forgot this." He took one step forward, confused. "Did you look at it?" "I did." Silence. He glanced at the screen, then back at me. He didn't even try to lie. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said, like this was my fault. Like I had stumbled onto a surprise party too soon. "She's pregnant too?" He swallowed hard. "Yes." I nodded slowly. "How long?" "A few months." I took a deep breath, trying to process how the man I married, the man I thought I knew, could say something so life-altering with such casual detachment. "I want the truth, James. All of it. Now." He ran his hands through his hair, pacing. "It started last year. At work. It wasn't supposed to be anything serious. But then, she got pregnant. She told me last month." I laughed. A sharp, bitter sound that didn't sound like me at all. "And you were just, what? Going to juggle two babies and hope I never found out?" "I didn't know how to tell you." "No," I said, my voice rising. "You just didn't want to lose the comfort of both lives. You wanted me, safe, reliable, silent, and her for whatever fantasy you're chasing." He sat down at the table, head in his hands. "I'm sorry." "Are you?" He looked up at me, eyes glassy. "I never wanted to hurt you. But you did." I didn't sleep that night. Neither did he. I lay in our bed staring at the ceiling, just like I had the night before. Except now, the silence between us wasn't empty. It was poisoned. The next morning, I called my sister. "I need a place to stay." She didn't ask why. Just said, "I'll come get you." I packed a small suitcase. A few clothes, my prenatal vitamins, and the folder with the ultrasound. The one I thought we'd hang on the fridge. As I waited for my sister, James stood in the doorway. "Please don't go." "I'm not doing this for me," I said. "I'm doing it for the baby. I won't raise them in a house built on lies." He didn't follow me. Not to the car. Not down the steps. Not when I pulled away. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally walking toward the truth, even if it hurt. My sister, Claire, didn't say much during the drive. She didn't have to. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel every time I exhaled too hard, like she could absorb my pain through her fingers. She helped me settle into her guest room, folded the sheets, even made me tea without asking how I liked it. That's the thing about sisters. They just know. 3 days passed. I didn't check my phone. I didn't go on social media. I didn't want to see his name. I didn't want to see her name. I barely wanted to see mine. Then, on the fourth day, Claire walked into the room and said something that made me want to scream. Mom invited us for dinner tonight. And she invited James too. I turned my head slowly, like I hadn't heard her right. She what? She doesn't know the full story. James told her you two were having a rough patch, but that he wants to work things out. I laughed, bitterly. A rough patch? That's what we're calling secret pregnancies now? Claire sat on the bed beside me. You don't have to go. But if you do go, maybe it's time they all hear the truth. I stared at the wall for a long time. Part of me wanted to disappear. But another part, the louder part, wanted to stand up. Not just for me. For my child. That night, I put on a black dress. Not to look good for James. But because it made me feel grounded. Sharp. A woman who was still standing. When we arrived, Mom opened the door with her usual flurry of hugs and overused perfume. Dad kissed my forehead and asked, "How are things with James?" I smiled tightly. "We'll talk at dinner." James was already there. Wearing the same gray button-down he wore the night he proposed. I wonder if that was intentional. He looked at me like I was glass. Like I might shatter if he blinked too hard. We sat. Ate. Small talk filled the air like static: work, weather, Claire's new apartment. No one asked why I hadn't spoken to James in days. No one questioned why we didn't sit next to each other. Until my mother finally said, "So, when are you two giving us a grandchild?" James opened his mouth. But I beat him to it. "I'm pregnant," I said. Calm. Direct. My father blinked in surprise. My mother gasped, hands to her mouth. Claire kept her eyes on her plate. "But," I added, "James won't be raising this baby with me." The room stilled. "What?" my dad said. "What are you talking about?" James shifted uncomfortably. "There's another woman," I continued. "And she's also pregnant. He's been hiding it for months." My mother's fork dropped onto her plate with a sharp clang. "James, is that true?" she asked, barely above a whisper. He couldn't even look at her. Just nodded slowly. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," he said. "You never do," I snapped. "That's the problem." Claire finally looked up. She found out by accident, by the way. Because he couldn't even be honest. My dad stood from his chair, jaw clenched. "Get out." James looked stunned. "What?" "You heard me," he said, pointing at the door. "You don't disrespect my daughter and expect to finish your damn steak." James stood slowly. "I'm sorry. Truly." "You're sorry because you were caught," I said. "Not because you did it." He walked out without another word. I looked around the table, at my mother still in shock, my father seething, Claire calm and fierce, and felt something unexpected. Relief. It was all out now. No more pretending. No more polite lies. And when I placed my hand over my stomach, for the first time in days, I smiled. 2 days after the dinner, I got a message. It wasn't from James. It was from her. Allie. The name I could barely say aloud without feeling a bitter sting in my throat. It read, "I'm sorry. I didn't know about you. Can we talk?" At first, I laughed. The kind of cold, empty laugh that only comes when you've been broken so far you can't even feel it anymore. She didn't know about me? I was his wife. We lived in the same house. Slept in the same bed, until recently. But then, a second message. "I thought I was the only one. I found out about you last week." I left him. I stared at my screen for a long time. I wasn't sure what to do. Part of me wanted to delete the texts, block the number, forget she ever existed. But another part of me needed answers. Not to forgive. Not to bond. But to close the damn loop. So I agreed. We met at a coffee shop downtown. I wore a hoodie and sunglasses like I was someone hiding from paparazzi. She wore a beige sweater, no makeup, hair pulled back. Tired. She looked tired. That made two of us. She stood when I walked in, but I didn't offer a hug. We sat. I wasn't trying to come between anything, she said first. He told me he was divorced. I raised an eyebrow. Interesting. He told me he was at work every time he was with you. Her face dropped. Are you really pregnant? I asked. It came out colder than I meant. Yes. 4 months. And you? 3. We sat in silence. Two strangers. Same mistake. Same man. Same pain. He said he wanted to be there for the baby, she whispered. Did he say the same to you? I nodded. She stared at the table. I feel stupid. Join the club. We didn't talk about what he said to us. We didn't trade sob stories or compare timelines. There was no benefit in trying to measure who had been lied to more. We just sat with it. Eventually, she said, what are you going to do? Raise my child without him, I said simply. She nodded slowly. Me too. And that was it. We left the cafe without hugging. Without promises. Without numbers exchanged. But I felt lighter walking out than I had in weeks. I wasn't alone in the betrayal. But more importantly, I wasn't alone in the decision to move forward. That night, Claire found me curled on the couch, staring at the ceiling. How was it? She asked. Closure, I said. And it was. Not forgiveness. Not healing. Just, the final thread snapped. James messaged me later that night. Can I still be part of the baby's life? I stared at that message for 10 full minutes. Then I replied. You can show up for your child. But not for me. Not anymore. I didn't need to block him. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to make him feel what I felt. He'd feel it on his own. And me? I started looking for an apartment the next morning. Claire offered her place for as long as I needed it, but I needed something of my own. Even if it was small. Even if it didn't have a nursery yet. I needed a beginning that was mine. The next weekend, I found a 1-bedroom near the park. Tiny kitchen. Big windows. Clean slate. I signed the lease the same day. When I brought Claire to see it, she smiled. It's cozy. It's honest. Exactly what I needed. As we stood in the empty room, she asked, You sure you're ready for all this? No, I said. But I'm doing it anyway. Because that's what strength really is. The first cry came at 3:42 a.m. on a Wednesday. I had labored for almost 16 hours. My body was exhausted. My mind was somewhere between a dream and a storm. But when they placed her, yes, her, on my chest, everything stilled. She was warm. Wrinkled. Pink. Breathing. And mine. I cried harder than I had the night James left. Harder than the day I found the messages. It wasn't pain, it was relief. She was here. And so was I. We'd made it. Claire was in the corner, wiping her own eyes. She came over and placed a hand on my shoulder. She's perfect, she whispered. She's everything, I said. They asked me if I wanted to put down a father's name on the birth certificate. I paused. Then I said, leave it blank for now. They didn't question it. James had shown up once during my 3rd trimester. He brought baby clothes and a fake smile. Said he was figuring himself out. I told him he could figure himself out far away from us. I wasn't raising a child in limbo. He asked to be called when she was born. I didn't. Not out of revenge. But because the birth of my daughter was ours. Mine and hers. It didn't belong to someone who treated us like a contingency. I named her Nora. After my grandmother. The strongest woman I ever knew. We spent the first few nights in the new apartment together, just me and Nora. The walls were bare, but it felt like home. I'd sit on the floor with her wrapped in a blanket, watching the light shift through the windows. Nothing else mattered. Some nights, I still got messages from James. He asked to meet. Asked to talk. I didn't block him. I just didn't respond. I wasn't ready. Nora came first. 2 weeks later, I posted a photo. Just Nora, asleep on my chest. No caption. The comments poured in. Old friends. Strangers. Messages from women I didn't even know, saying things like, I needed to see this today. I'm where you were 3 months ago. I thought I was alone. I realized something then, this story wasn't just mine. It was ours. Women who'd been left, betrayed, gaslit, and still chose to love the child that came out of the wreckage. And if sharing even one part of it could help someone feel a little less alone, then maybe the pain wasn't wasted. So if you're reading this, and you've been through something like it, if you've ever sat in silence with a truth too heavy to carry, if you felt the sting of betrayal and still found the strength to move forward, share your story. Not for revenge, but for someone who needs to know that healing is possible. That starting over is brave. That peace doesn't come from who stays, but from who we become when they don't.